But Dan Burke, it is crazy though, man. For the Pacers and the Phillies, 20 years of experience. He's more regarded as a defensive-minded head coach. And he was with the Pacers from 2002 to 2019. And there were some great defensive teams from the Pacers in those early 2000s. But what are you most excited about with Dan Burke coming to potentially joining the coaching staff?
So the more research I did on all these, assistant coaches is like, I feel like you can talk about coaches, but I feel like you really learn about like what they've done and their experience by kind of like looking up of what teams, what previous jobs he's had. He was a directing of scouting at one point of his career before he got into assistant coaching. So he's kind of worn a bunch of hats, and he was Doc Rivers' associate head coach this year. So he was a guy that Doc Rivers leaned on a lot. But I think if we want to get better as a basketball team, you need a guy like Dan Burke on this staff because, like you said, he was a part of a lot of those great Pacer defensive teams in the early 2000s, and he was with the Pacers all the way up until 2019. If you guys do want to look something up, Dan Burke actually had a really funny comment about the Sixers because he was complaining about Joel Embiid getting a bunch of fouls, and then he goes and plays, or he goes and coaches Joel Embiid. But like I said, maybe I'll post that after this podcast is over. But I just think he's kind of regarded as kind of like that defensive coordinator that you need. Like Mark Bryant's more of that, players type of coach for centers, and then you got that defensive coordinator that can teach these young Pistons of how to play defense, how to communicate and stuff like that. And he's got so much experience that, I wouldn't really worry with this coaching staff if he does decide to come to Detroit.
The one thing I'm excited about is just all the experience on the coaching staff. I think that is huge, absolutely huge. Guys that, we all talked about like having young coaches come in because they come with like fresh ideas and everything, but to have some veterans that are still in the game, sitting on the benches to this day with over 20 years experience, you don't have that much years of experience without growing with the game or adapting to what is played now. But also Dan Burke has a 28-minute video on YouTube about closeout defense. So
that's what I'm saying. Like because I didn't know anything about him, I'll be completely honest with you. But scrolling on the timeline, the people that actually did the research, they were like, yeah, this is like a defensive coordinator. This guy's like a defensive minded guru. Like this is a guy that, could really elevate the Detroit Pistons and, help Monty Williams and Steven Silos and the rest of the coaching staff, help the Pistons get better. And that's something that the city hit and the Pistons have really prided themselves on is defense. Yeah. I don't know how much you can teach them now in today's NBA with the rules and, how it's more of an offensive driven league, but if you can, help them, become a better defensive team, I'm here for it.
Well, I think with the closeout defense, especially, like you probably teach them patience in that regard, because that is such a easy way for an offensive player to draw fouls because you're sprinting right at them. Like Kentavious Caldwell Pope gets called for at least one every single game in the finals I've watched, at least, where somehow, Kyle Lowry just baits him into a foul and he's heading to the line. So I don't know. I think it's important, and I'm glad that the Pistons are trying to establish the defense again in Detroit. So that's it.